Perfect.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. It's Franz Sidney here with Create with Franz. And today we have a very special guest with us. It's called Shana Rosenthal, and is a British citizen in Florida and also an American citizen. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, friends. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you and see that you are dressed with such nice light summery clothes, and reminds me that it's supposed to be spring. It can be quite depressing and make you really anxious about when is summer coming here. It's the eternal question for British people, but even if you're not British. And here's the thing, we can worry about all sorts of stuff in life. We can do that. And today we're going to talk about a very particular worry, some kind of generalized anxiety that a lot of people, especially women, have. And remember that statistically, women are 2 to 3 times more likely to have anxiety compared to men, and especially in menopause, because it is driven by the lack of estrogen. So it's all medical-based data. So let's talk about a person that is living a good life, fulfilled life, everything is good. However, they are quite ahead in their relationships and family and their job, and then maybe they have to do a presentation, talk in front of people, and they feel the need to breathe deeply because they can't do it, or they might even drink something. I know of a person that does that before doing her very, very famous course with people, and she drinks during the course because otherwise she can't do it. And so this drinking is to soothe something, but just a little drink to feel better, so I feel that I can do this. Or maybe you could be not advancing. Maybe you are listening to this and you're not advancing in your career because there's something there blocking you, and you're just as good as Johnny and Mary, but you're not advancing. You think, Or maybe you are good and you're advancing by just overthinking. You might be spending the night with chronic insomnia, like, why am I asking these questions to myself all the time? So if you are in this group of thinking, well, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe that, and you think so much you can't sleep, or by the time you get to the task, you are just blocked by something, and you've been pushing aside the idea that maybe there is something to do about it. This is why we got here a graduate in psychology who also uses EFT and NLP to tackle this by rewriting the neuropathology or neural pathways that are behind these behaviors and these symptoms. So I really am happy to welcome you because the symptoms are so prevalent in many of your clients, right?
Right.
Is there any more? Did I cover all of them pretty much?
Well, yeah, I mean, you did a really good job. And, I, having worked with anxiety clients for going on 15 years now, I've noticed that people tend to do things to distract themselves away from feeling the anxiety, and because it's so uncomfortable, right? We feel the anxiety both physically and emotionally, and so the mind wants to keep us safe, wants to keep us comfortable, and so it creates these patterns of, well, what can I do to feel more comfortable in this situation? And I'll just have a glass of wine, like you detailed. And the chemicals in the brain change a little bit. We relax, we soften. The mind thinks, oh, this feels good. Maybe I'll have another glass of wine just to keep it going. And so now we're in an altered state of mind. We feel more comfortable. But now what happens is the brain kind of creates a pattern, a behavior, a longing for, next time I feel uncomfortable, I'm going to have a glass of wine to soften the discomfort and help me to deal with, whatever it is I have to deal with. And so the pattern of behavior continues. And, our brains like to conserve energy. So therefore, where we create a habit, which is subconscious. And so every time we feel uncomfortable in a situation, we now are reaching for that glass or two of wine, and it becomes now a process, an ingrained part of our habits and our lives. And then we look back and we think the last however long we're drinking too much, it's affecting our behavior. it's also affecting our clarity of thought, and it's impacting our health. Now we're putting on weight. We have these cravings that we're dealing with, and there are other things that are going on that we don't feel good about. Now we have the feeling of we don't feel good about the decisions we're making, and it impacts the anxiety. So instead of making us feel better in the short term, we feel more comfortable, but in the long term, we have now all these other problems that we're now dealing with, right?
Yeah.
So that's just one example of, just drinking a little bit too much to help us to feel comfortable impacts us. And there are other things that people do to self-soothe that they later regret, right? And that could be, I don't know, maybe smoking, right? It could be, quick to anger, right? There are so many other issues that if you don't deal with the stress and the anxiety effectively, properly, healthily, then we're going to have these impacts that later on we're just going to regret, and then it becomes a challenge to rewire those patterns. It's not difficult. It's just very difficult to do it on our own. We need to then work with a professional to help us to create better patterns of behavior that then become new habits and natural ways of dealing with our stress and our anxiety.
Thank you. That made me think not only it's very expensive because drinking and
Yeah.
smoking, sadly, pills, anti-anxiety pills, it becomes, a toll on your life because you have to rely on something external because the internal resource is somehow missing. Don't we then build up this idea that we cannot deal with something unless we have this external help? So in the end, we feel more powerless.
Absolutely. And the issue with anxiety, and you'll probably agree with me, is the more powerless you feel, the bigger it becomes.
Mm.
And so, it can start off with just a feeling of discomfort in a situation, like, as you say, uh, I'm a business person, and I feel comfortable in my knowledge, my skills, myself, but put me in front of a room full of people to present, and that's where it starts, right? And that's where I need the help, right?
Yes.
You can all the internal overthinking and the anxiety. Now, that could just be where the anxiety starts. But if you don't deal with it effectively, it will start to creep into other areas of your life, right? And that's where you start to feel completely powerless. And it will have very many layers of impact.
No. I did have clients in the past that were just like that. Basically, they started with one part of their life, one segment of their life, one area, one field, maybe with school or work, and then it was literally like throwing a bottle of oil on the floor. It went, whoosh, and it just spread everywhere because actually, the more you listen to the anxiety and take action in that way, for example, a drug or a drink or something, the more you avoid the problem as well and avoid the situation, the more your brain will think, oh, it's a big problem here. We are going to use this and that. So this is serious. And so the more you think it's serious, the more reaction you will have. And it's really ingrained, which is why it's important to go to a therapist. People think, oh, I'm spending, $50, $100 per session. Yeah, do you know how much you're spending if you don't deal with that? Because, the alcohol and the drugs will have an impact. If you lose your liver in extreme cases, that's life-threatening, isn't it? But on the average, when you invest in yourself, you're gonna just get something good out of it because you're now in control. Your quality of life has no price of it. It's just priceless, isn't it?
Right. And it's interesting you talk about cost, because that can be a triggering word for people, especially, at the beginning of the conversation. I always have a complimentary 15-minute chat. I offer that for people who have got a couple of questions. They're not sure with the type of work that I do is going to be a good fit. So I start off saying that let's just have a couple of minutes just to, I can ask you a couple of questions. You can ask me a couple of questions. If we think it's a good fit, then I'll offer them a longer conversation to detail exactly what it is that they're dealing with and what my recommendations would be. And then obviously if they want to move ahead, then there is going to be a cost to working, and sometimes people are a little bit concerned about talking about that, and I try and kind of help them by saying, well, what's the cost of doing nothing? Not just financially, but to your health, to your relationships, to your career, to long term. Have you thought about that? And it isn't necessarily financial. It's everything else. It's your life.
Yes.
It's the potential that you're missing out on of how life could be.
And it's not that difficult once you work with a specialist. So what kind of tools do you use? Because I know you use psychotherapy, NLP, and EFT. So in a series of sessions, what would you do to help a person?
So here in Florida, so I did all my training back in London before we moved here. And so yes, I have my psychotherapy training, but I'm not able to use that here in Florida because I didn't train here and get my certifications and qualifications here. So I utilize my hypnotherapy qualification. And here I'm known as a certified consulting hypnotist, because you can't use even the word hypnotherapist here in Florida unless you've done the certifications here. And let me tell you, the certifications here are not as good as what you would get back home. But that's another story. So here it's hypnosis, it's neuro-linguistic programming, EFT, emotional freedom technique. And then I kind of spatter along. So I can't help myself, but obviously, sprinkle the magic of, other therapies that I've been trained in along the way. And I always say to my clients, because everybody's so different. So because my training is so extensive and my years of experience, I have the ability to kind of create and cherry pick from all of my knowledge and experience sessions that are specifically designed for them, their personality, their life experience and the problems that they're dealing with. So I might be dealing with 10 people with very similar problems, but yet the sessions will look very different because they are different people. So no two sessions are ever the same. But I always like to teach my clients emotional freedom technique because I think that it's a very, very effective, empowering tool that can be utilized for many different issues. And it's something they can do themselves, right? And that's why it's so empowering. Anything you can teach your clients to do themselves in the moment is, for me, is very important. And then we do use hypnosis in our sessions as well, because that's where the deep change in perception happens, which is so important when dealing with anxiety. It's how you look at it. And as you said before, the more attention you place on it, the bigger it gets. And people tend to focus so much on what is going wrong and what they're not happy about in their life. And they forget about where it is they want to be and what it is they want to feel instead. Right? And I think if people focus more on this and learn how to do that, because it doesn't come naturally in our brains are always drawn to the negative, right? So to learn how to shine the light on what it is they want instead and make that big, things start changing very fast.
Yes, I can see that's NLP, and I did train with Marisa Peer, but also with Mike Mandel. And we do so much with Mandel about visualizing and the metaphors. And sometimes the mind doesn't need to be told anything specific. We just need a metaphor that describes our life. And what happens is when we sometimes read the story, let's pick up a Cinderella story, but whatever story is, so there's a meaning to that. A lady who does this XYZ will end up doing that. That's eye-opening. maybe that's me. So when we talk in metaphors, we just think, I just have a little chat. I mean, if you remember Milton Erickson, the great psychotherapist, and of course I'm an Ericksonian hypnotist myself. So he had this thing of just talking to people, and after a while they were done. They had no idea what happened. And one of his clients said, I don't know, I've been smoking all my life. I went there, he told me 2 stories and a couple of jokes. I went home and I no longer want to smoke. I don't know what it's done to me. He used metaphors.
Yeah. Yeah. So powerful because the subconscious, it's the language of the subconscious metaphor.
Yeah. So the power of words is incredible. And you know what? In my experience of 100 plus clients, it's the words that we tell ourselves that are the most important, because we are the most self-bashing individuals in the world. We destroy everything.
I know. And the other thing is that, you know, when the mind doesn't know how to process negation properly. So you can say the wrong words to yourself and get the opposite result. You know, I'm not going to freak out, right? All it hears is I'm going to freak out. And so now we're focusing on freaking out, and the freak out gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And I think it's again, empowering our clients to understand how the mind works, how it processes, and teaching them, you know, just a few nuances so that they can tweak what they're doing so that it can be more effective in their life. Once they start doing this stuff, making these little tweaks, it feels natural, but it feels so good. Then they get the confidence back. And it's like, what more can I do now? Right? Very often when we first start with our clients, you'll probably agree, they come in, they're overwhelmed. They don't know what to do. They've been maybe to traditional talk therapy, spent a ton of money and time, and it hasn't worked. It feels good to talk about our problems. Everybody knows that, right? It's great. But it doesn't get us out of the depths of where you know what they're doing, that, you know, whether it's the depression, the anxiety, or, you know, the fear, or whatever it is, they're in it, and sometimes it does keep us stuck. And what we do is we give them the tools and the know-how and the power to be able to, you know, lift them out, and now here they are shining, feeling amazing, and living a wonderful life. And that's why I often get asked, you know, 15 years, it's a long time to be doing the same thing. And, you know, I'm just like, what? I just love it, because I see these transformations happen in front of me over and over again. That's my addiction, baby. It's a good one.
Yeah. And I think that's we can really sum it all up and give tips based on that, because it is not as complicated in the majority of times, unless you have a medical condition. Well, we're not talking about that now, but most of the times it's just correcting the way we are looking at something through these black glasses and focus on what is important. Because if I have a camera and I have a long lens in front of me, I could almost pick it up, but it's too far. And I just move the rings to focus on one thing, all the rest becomes blurred.
Correct.
It just disappears. The camera is designed to copy what the lens do in the eye. So this lens will focus on something. It focuses you now, cannot see anything behind it, just all blurred. And isn't that exactly the same? Because our brain cannot focus on everything. We are not multitasking. This is really medically proven. We're not multitasking. We can focus on something for a little while and something for a little while, 6 seconds. And that's why driving while texting is so dangerous, and doing fires or anything explosive while doing something else is very dangerous, because we cannot focus on both at the same time. So just like an actor comes into the stage and takes precedence and talks, and everyone stops talking because the actor is talking. So we listen to that. When we put a thought in our mind, my experience is that's what we're going to listen to. But if we push away the actor and say, well, I'm not listening to that old story, I want that one because I'm the director of the show, and I bring somebody else, the story starts to change. Our biology changes, our emotion changes, our breathing changes, even the temperature of our skin changes, and the way we breathe deeply or not changes, because we're saying to the brain, no, but I'm focused on something else.
Yep.
And that's completely different. Just like when you're running and you have this race, you have 10 people. If you are concentrated on how big and strong is the other runner, you're going to lose.
Yeah,
But if you
exactly.
concentrate on the end, what you're gonna, that's my thing, and I'm gonna get there in 10 seconds or whatever. I'm one of these snails, so I can't even imagine what it's like to fly towards the goal. But let's say when you focus on that, you're concentrated, your heart is pumping, and your energy is there, your focus is there, you're gonna get there as fast as you can possibly could because you are focused on what matters. And
Right.
that's what's missing in anxiety. You're focused on what can possibly go wrong. And so of course,
Exactly.
that's what you're
Right.
gonna get.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, that reminds me of an analogy that I give to my clients to help them to understand how to manage their thoughts, because so many people say to me, my mind is driving me crazy. I can't stop this, negative cycle of thought
Chattering.
just keeps coming and I can't shut it up. So one of the first, I do a couple of things with my clients right at the first session to help them understand how they can, really stop it. And the first thing I say is, all right, I want you to understand that you are not your thoughts. You are the thinker of your thoughts. Right?
Think,
So
everyone, think.
you are the thinker of your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. And every time one of these thoughts start, because it only starts with one negative thought, and you allow yourself just to be at the mercy of that thought, then all of a sudden tens of thousands of thoughts just come flooding in. So if you remind yourself that you are the thinker, you are not the thoughts, that helps them to minimize what the sound of the thoughts almost. It's like, oh, and they feel elevated from it, right? And the other thing about these thoughts is, okay, now I've recognized that I am the thinker. Now what can I do if I decide I want to think another thought? I don't want to be thinking this thought. I want to be thinking something else. And if they haven't recognized that yet, that they're so powerful. Oh, I have a choice in the moment. Wow. Didn't realize.
It's the
And
power
then
of choice, yeah.
it's so powerful. So now what we do is we create maybe 2 or 3 power thoughts that we have in our back pocket, that because if we have a predetermined decision that this is what we're going to do in the moment, I'm going to think one of my power thoughts, then I have to think about it, because in the moment, if they haven't had a decision that, well, these are my 2 power thoughts, right, which is easy just to pull 1 or 2 out and really focus on those, which are going to be, uplifting and wonderful and positive and, whatever, it really takes the pressure off them. So, it's a pattern of like, recognize it's happening, remind yourself you are the thinker of the thoughts, you are not your thoughts, and know that you have a choice of what you can think about. Pull out one of the 2 thoughts you want to think about that. There you have it. All of a sudden, those negative thought loops just disappear and they didn't even realize it.
Yes.
It can be
Very
just as
powerful.
simple as that. It's so powerful, but yet so simple. So
Yes.
simple.
They should teach this in schools because
Oh,
we sometimes build up such a negative thing about, homework and exams and failing and whatever, testing. And in the end of the day, once we recognize the power of relaxation, breathing nicely, and putting some gratitude and positivity in the thoughts, and I do recognize that there are times when you have cancer, mental illness, desperation, financial, that there are real reasons for being worried. There
right.
are true reason, bombs are falling, there are wars all over the place. So yes, that's when you get worried. Even so, you have to learn how to self-regulate these
Mhm.
thoughts, these emotions, because they can destroy you. And as we know, cortisol goes high, your immune
Mm.
system goes down. So you're more likely to become more
Sick.
ill than you want.
Right. Right. Which these days, everybody's talking about, health and keeping healthy and what we can do to keep healthy. And people are waking up to understanding how, stress impacts our health. And really at the end of the day, you know, the missing link is, well, what can I do with my own mind to help me to stave off that stress response more effectively?
Yes. And sometimes it's just about diving into the event that we dread, because most of the times,
Yeah.
unless the event is jumping into a fountain area, a puddle full of crocodiles, the majority of times it's not as bad as we anticipated. And once we are in, we realize, oh, actually, I almost enjoyed myself.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we have to realize our brain doesn't have anything called a sense of humor. We just
Right.
don't have that naturally. So if we have a subconscious thought that something is going to go wrong, we will build an imagery that's very powerful and dark and negatively charged to make us feel in our body the breathing and the sinking feeling. And some of my clients literally had the feeling of having a stone or something gray and
Yeah.
dark that was right here in the stomach. Those on YouTube can see me and the other can't. Sorry for that. But they feel that, and during the session, we let it go to the universe or whatever, because that is the condensation of all these ideas that we are creating electrically. They can be felt by the brain as a real thing, just like when we watch a horror movie or we see something really gruesome on television. It's all pixels, but they create a physical somatic reaction.
Well,
Wow.
I mean, that's an example of hypnosis right there,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yeah. And we believe it. I mean,
We do. We
yeah.
do. Yeah.
So it's not just about being naive and positive thinking. We're not hippies here. We're talking about how our biology works. And
Right.
the energy will always go where your focus is. So if you keep focusing on what's going to go wrong, that's what you're going to see. And we can talk to you all day. So that's why I think hypnosis is so powerful,
Yeah.
because it will allow you to just forget the logic for a minute and just go down to what you actually believe. And a lot of times there was something that happened years ago, and they gave us this belief, and we attached to that very nicely because we had to protect ourselves from pain.
Mm.
And so as we detangle it with the help of somebody who knows what they're doing, we get this freedom. And I think is that our thoughts are not who we are, and we can detach ourselves from a little baby who was worried about something and now has created a very difficult life in the huge effort to protect himself from more pain. But actually, life can be very, very interesting, even through the pain. There are such great lessons and things we can learn. Do you
I
agree
know.
with that?
Of course I do. And it's so fascinating. I'm still learning every day, you know, and I find it fascinating. And I'm encouraged that people are these days more open to understanding their own minds and why it's working the way it's working and what they can do to help
Yes.
themselves more effectively and deeper and quicker than they first thought,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And they don't know what people don't know what they don't know as
That's the
well,
thing.
right? And it's, you know, I think once that they have that kind of spark, that realization that really I can live my life limitless and it doesn't have to be hard to do
Yeah.
that. It's amazing.
Yeah. Many things can change, and our happiness is not determined by the environment as much as we think. There is so much we can do for the inner happiness based on this attitude, like if you follow the Dispenza and all the other people, just really started
Mm,
to think, what can I do in this situation? Be strategic, which is why I always follow my normal sessions by coaching.
mm.
Because when you have a coaching, then you open up your brain to all the possibilities and things that you thought you could never do, you can do. So I am so grateful that we could have this chat with you, because I think, guys, if you want to talk to Shana Rosenthal, you can just click on all those links and I give you. But I hope you have today enough tips to get started, to really think, am I in charge of my own health? And what can I do today? And today, the first thing is recognize you are not your thoughts. That's going to be the top of my meme that I make for every episode. So you will see you are not your thoughts.
Yeah, yeah.
Says Shana. Follow
You
me
are,
for more advice.
Yeah, I am the thinker of my thoughts. I am not my thoughts.
Yes, I am the finger. And
Yeah.
that's so important. So with this final message of good hope, please contact us for any questions. As I said and you said, it's free to have a consultation. So you can ask questions and we can always refer you. If we think there's a special thing for you, they last with a colleague. So we're not jealous of one another. We're just very
Oh,
full of energy and we exchange and we think it's great that the client goes to the right person. So
nice.
thank you for being with us.
Oh, you are more than welcome. Thank you for this opportunity. This has been wonderful. What a pleasure. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure for me. So anyone who's listening to this, if you want to maybe share it with one of your friends who feel a little bit down and why everything is going wrong, share, click share, like, subscribe. You know what to do. And so that, if you do that, it really helps the channel to get seen by more people who need to change something so they can create the life that they want. And that is exactly the title of my podcast for a reason, because we have tools to create this life. Let's do that together. Thank you so much and see you all later. Bye-bye.
Bye.